Hi there, so the first part of my demo is going to be showing how we integrate with Microsoft's Windows 10 switch feature component. This is commonly used, say, in healthcare or kiosk style environments where one computer is shared by many people and they want to be able to quickly switch accounts as they go to the terminal to do whatever work they need to do. This is a great use of running our container as a service, because as the users switch from one user to another, the container keeps on running because it's started as when the computer starts, rather than being started in the context of the individual user. And it means that the container, one container, can service the applications and the application needs of many users from a single machine. Like a lot of things in IT, that's harder to say than it is to actually demo. Once you see the phone screen, you'll see straight away what I'm getting at. So I've got here a Windows machine, and I've already logged on as Michelle Laverick, and I've already got some applications running in the container, a legacy version of Microsoft Office, a kind of standard app that I always use to demonstrate those sorts of things. And so the applications are live and running inside the container. Now what I'm going to do is send a Control-Alt-Delete signal to the computer, and I'm going to switch user and pretend that I'm a different person wanting to use this machine. For example, I'm going to pretend to be this guy called Barry Daniels for a second. So Barry already has an application up and running. Yeah, and he can load up other applications. So what we've got here is a single container, one .droplet file, one service, serving up applications throughout the container, which allows this for this sort of multi-user, switch user, multi-session style environment. I must admit we've sometimes struggled to find the right word to describe this feature. We initially started calling it switch user because we developed for a healthcare practice this type of support, which we hadn't previously done, but we're starting to extend this feature into other components as well. Last thing for me to show you is what is it like for a new user, somebody who's never logged on before. So I'm going to switch this time to a different user who's never logged on before, a user that is called Fabian. So this is the first time the user's logged on. So what will happen is a profile will be needed to be created for this user. So obviously that's going to take a little bit of time. Now that profile's being created, what's going to happen is the Droplet client app, which is just the front end, is going to be started in the background. And that automatically creates icons on the end user's desktop. So the next thing that this user will do is run an application for the first time. And then they're going to be challenged for their username and password. Now the reason this happens is we've got one container which is servicing the needs of multiple users, and they can't all use the same identity to do that. Otherwise one user would get another user's applications. This integrates quite well with the Windows 10 MSGina. So the user's getting a prompt here to log in to the system. They can also, if they want to, store their password as part of this setup. You can disable this Remember Me through an Active Directory policy if you want to. That can be quite handy to reduce the number of times this pop-up appears, but just be a little bit wary of the fact that Credential Manager, which is where this is being stored, doesn't handle the fact that the password changes every 90 days on most people's domain environments. So I choose OK, and the application is loaded. One thing to bear in mind there is, because we're doing a log into the container, a user profile is being created inside the container, as well as there being a user profile on the Windows 10 system. So one thing you might want to do is have a look into your policy systems once the container is joined to the domain, and have a look at the way you manage profiles. Some of our customers use a mandatory profile that all the container users use. Generally, I would recommend some way of redirecting the profile and putting it on the network. So wherever the user goes, if they make any changes, in their container-based application, that's stored in their roaming profile, whether it's one that is personal to them or one that is shared with other users in a mandatory format. So that's the switch user feature. The next thing we're going to look at is the same process but used in the context of a Microsoft remote desktop session host.